everything changed. It felt like my life was over.
This is what high blood pressure sounds like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a heart attack or stroke are far from invisible or silent.
150/90, and I had a stroke. If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
180/110, and I had a stroke. And I'm 33, so I never see this coming.
If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it. Or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
Head to toe, everything's changed. Head to toe.
Brought to you by the American Heart Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Donyshia Boston-Hill, along with Ray Schwetz, and our guest today is Robin Cramer, CPA, PC, an amazing CPA for our own accounting forensic CSI agent right here.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
I'm sure you've heard and seen every possible scenario for white collar crime. Share with the audience out there a cool story.
Well, I have one that didn't turn out to be a fraud, but we get a phone call from a major distributor of beverages like Pepsi or Coca-Cola, and they call up the company and said, "You duplicate paid us." So we do an investigation, and turns out they would duplicate paid other vendors to the tune of over $50 million.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And the company said, well, at least it's not $60 million, because then we'd have to report it on the Q. to me and you, that would be like, wow. They were so calm about it. I was like, wow. That's not your average client, though, I have to say. Yeah. I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. I've worked on others, and one major one where people did go to jail, where they acquired 100 companies in the course of 3 years, valued the assets really low, and turned around and sold those assets so they could recognize the profits. Because prior to that, they were kind of struggling, and the SEC was all over them saying, we're going to delist you, this, that, the other. Right. So what did they have to do? They had to inflate profits. So they do that by showing more profit by selling assets that they devalued. And then they covered it up by writing handwritten notes in code language to each other. So we had to find the documents to support some side transactions that were part of this. So it was quite interesting. You had to know what the code word was to find all the correspondence that you'd expect to find.
That's a movie in the making.
There you go. Yeah.
So you hear about other languages in movies like Avatar. Mm-hmm. So this is
this is its own language.
This is own language out there.
Oh yeah. So we're going to come up with their own words. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, we could have a future Aaron Brockovich here. Just like Robin Cramer movie.
Right. We should definitely we should have our own code language right here on Tower Talk.
We should talk about this, yes. Produced by Tower Talk. There you go.
I love it.
Now, switching gears a little bit, how are you building your brand? Because you're an amazing resource, and how do people get to you? Because a business owner wouldn't necessarily. It's not like they're going to look up on Google, fraud investigator. How do I find you?
A lot of times, believe it or not, it's word of mouth, and it's through your attorney or a board of director, or you're out playing golf or sports, where somebody said, it's just a casual conversation. Do you know? Something's not right in my business. I'm making all this money, but I'm not getting it in my bank account. What's going on? They need to have the wherewithal to say something's not right. And who do you turn to?
So once they hear that, the attorney knows.
Yes. I speak at professional organizations. I've had a lot of condo fraud, potential alleged fraud in condo associations.
Okay.
So I go around and I speak at different organizations related to that as well. I speak to other accountants. Sometimes people call their accountant. And accountants that aren't familiar with forensic accounting don't know what to do with that. And they'll call me as well. So I speak to accountants and attorneys so that I'm on their short list, so they get the phone call.
Now, do you work with any athletes? Because I can see you taking over 30 for 30 and turning these guys' lives around, because they're paying for a house over here, and their accountants and their agents, and this person's taking the money. And every week you see these guys saying, "I had $100 million, and now." It's nothing. Yeah. It's nothing in the banks.
Well, I need introductions to them because, yes, they need my help. It's not always attorneys that need my help. It's people that don't know where their money's going.
Right.
And that's what I do. I find out, we get to the bottom. And then sometimes it's legitimate. And look, you overspent the money. But you need somebody to say, hey, this is where it went. Let me see the books and records. And it's a very private thing because you're uncovering everything. It's like peeling away the layers of an onion. You don't know, on the surface everything looks great, but when you kind of peel it away, it's like, oh, that's what's going on there.
I feel like you have the money ball going on.
Yeah.
They're making the money, and then Robin needs to ensure and will ensure that you keep your money.
Absolutely. That's what I love to do.
It's funny, though. You bring up a very good point because I am thinking about it in terms of financial. Because, again, that's the world I kind of play in, so that's what I'm used to. But Donyshia has got a very good point. This really can affect anybody. And it's in, like, every VH1 Storytellers episode you ever see, right? There's the drugs, and then there's the cousin Vinny who stole the money. Not Vinny. I shouldn't blame Vinny. That was wrong. It could be anybody. It could be Ronnie. It could be anybody.
I think we have another streamline of revenue for you and your trajectory, Robin.
I love it. I love it. Bring it on.
You're going to be like a forensic accounting writer or movie maker.
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, everybody needs to be aware of it. It's everybody's at risk. Fraud doesn't discriminate. It could be you. It could be me. It could be we worry about identity theft and everything else. But where's it? You got to look at the other end of things too, and you got to say, okay, well, how do we make sure everything we're investing in is secure? How do we know the accountant's telling the truth? It's usually your most trusted advisors that commit the fraud.
Absolutely.
So
now, Robin, I mean, we're talking about, the glory or the glitz of some of what you do. But you said you had your business for 8 years, and I'm sure it hasn't all been roses. Tell us about some of those early years. What did you learn, and what type of business advice would you give to someone that's, out there starting up? Because it's not easy.
It's not easy, and you have to be patient. You have to learn to listen a lot. And make the right connections with different people. Ask for help when you need help. There's other professionals out there. I'm a small boutique firm, and there are other people that are willing to help you. And you have to know to ask for help. Don't be too proud.
You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, and our guest today is Robin Cramer, CPA PC. So how do you keep yourself motivated going through all this?
I find it vindicating, or when you find a fraud or you don't find a fraud, but you can answer the questions that people have and the concerns they have, and say, look, this is what's going on, and explain it. And they're relieved, and you see it in their faces, and you're like, okay, I've done a good job here. We've gotten to the bottom of what was going on, and it's being remedied, and they're implementing controls. And to me, that's the most satisfying thing that pushes me to go to the next thing.
Got it. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, because I know I see it sometimes when I'm working with somebody. You see that piece of the puzzle click in, and they just go, even if it's not great news, at least it's not a concern. Now it's like, all right, well, now we just got to deal with it.
Correct. The unknown's scarier than what is known. If you know it's like being sick, at a doctor. You don't know, and they try all these tests, and they can't figure it out. Once you know what it is, good or bad, you can deal with it.
Right.
It's the same thing with fraud.
Yeah. So now audits are scary for people, and I'm sure, being called into the courtroom to testify, that's a scary time for most people out there. Have you had to testify?
Only a handful of times. I have not. I've had to testify. I think the most trying time was sitting in front of the SEC. The SEC calls you in front of this room, and it's a glass room, and they can look, and it's like a fishbowl. And once you answer something, and they're like, wow, that's an interesting answer, they all get up, and they walk around, and you see them through this glass fishbowl, and they have a conversation right behind it. And then they all come back in, and they continue questioning. Very
that's intimidating.
Strange. And intimidating, yes.
Because they're talking about you.
Exactly. And you can see that through the glass. I'm like, wow, that's really a bit bizarre. And I had to do that the same week as I had to visit the DC jail for one of my other clients. So that was an experience as well. I can say I've been there, done that. They do wear orange uniforms, and I don't need to go back.
Nice. Alrighty.
That's a little scary. All right, well, that's
check
the other
that
part of the movie.
off my list of things to do in DC.
Exactly.
And switching it up a little bit, what are some of the accomplishments that you're very proud of? I mean, we talked about generally speaking, but are there any cases in particular or people that you've helped that really stick out?
Well, I think it's really fortunate when I started my business, I had parted ways with a larger company, and I got a phone call from the New York State Attorney General's office shortly thereafter, and they said, I know you're no longer there. Do you still want to do the investigation?
Wow.
So that was a great start, and that led to what's called I did the investigation, and there was a settlement of $20 million. And then they asked me to stay on and make sure that they implemented the controls that I recommended.
Nice.
So it's pretty cool to be able to see that over the course of a couple of years later. So that was a great accomplishment for me. Another one was working at a local government, and I had to do that fraud investigation, and I was called in to do that, and that had fraud that everything I turned over, every person I spoke to, there was something that was not right.
Wow.
And that was good when we were able to share that report with the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like the financial version of I don't know if you've ever seen the show Broadchurch.
No, I haven't.
It's one to check out, but it's basically they're investigating a murder, and what happens is as they're investigating the town people, they're, as you said, peeling back all the onion, and you're finding out things you don't necessarily want to know about everybody.
Yes, that's so true. We do that too. I find out there's these love triangles, and that's why certain things happen. You're like,
that
I didn't
dinner
really
expense was not what we thought it was.
Is there a little hotel room or a gift here or there, Robin?
It could be, or it could be, let's pad your hours so you're getting more compensation. Because I'm in charge of payroll and I can do that.
Wow.
So even worse than the dinner is well, who's getting paid more and who's getting paid less, and okay. And it goes undetected unless you're really looking for something like that. The gift is usually identified, right? You can usually figure that out. But when they're manipulating payroll like that, you have to really look at it and say, does that person really work these hours? Or who logged into the system when it was not business hours? Who changed numbers when they shouldn't have changed numbers? What was their incentive?
Wow. And in the private business world, like you said, it's the Wild West. Nobody's going to know that unless you're hired to check that.
Correct. So wow. I look at that, and normally it's a conversation with business owners. So I may have a roundtable discussion with business owners and just throw out some things. Well, is everybody doing this? Or have you thought about doing that? And then people say, wow, we never thought about checking this or doing that. Or, I think my controls are lacking in this area, and we probably need to look at that.
Wow.
Because they're not held to the standard of a publicly held company. So therefore their internal controls are not at the level you'd expect them to be.
Now, if there was one thing that you wanted to leave with our listeners, what would that one thing be?
If something doesn't seem right, question it. It's okay. You should. It probably is not right.
Gotcha. I like that. And what's the best way you mentioned a couple of things, but what's the best way for people who are looking for a speaker or people who are looking for you, from a business standpoint for help or maybe an advisor is looking for you? What's the best way for them to find you?
They can go to my website, and they can find me at CPA Cramer, CRAMER.com.
Okay. And phone number?
I'm at 631-406-4175.
Because we want to make sure people can find you. Because, like I said, you're a very valuable resource, very knowledgeable, and it's really cool to hear some of the impact that you've made on business owners. And I think our listeners can benefit from that. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we have a little philosophy, don't we?
We do. So a little quote from Anil Sinha: "Forget the past, accept your mistakes, dare to speak the truth. Be honest to your commitment, and now life is ready to take off to the horizon you desire." Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, Robin. We really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to thank you for being with us. My name is Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, your co-host and producers. The creative director of Tower Talk Business Radio is Rudy Breedy. This is an NCC Foundation Business Leaders Council production. Visit ncc.edu/WHPC for more information. Available on iHeartRadio as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcast, and Spreaker. This has been Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. We'll talk with you next week.